Hello, my little chickadees. It's Adam here. Yes. Currently, a quick intro here because what you're about to listen to was originally recorded for the upcoming mini episodes that I've been doing called Saving for Skaven, where we break down the pre-release stuff for Age of Sigmar 4.0. This, however, ended up being nearly an hour, well, just over an hour long, I think, and as a result, I've decided that it really needs to be a Fluffenhammer episode in of itself, which is why it's got a slightly different intro, but also it has a double meaning of announcing that there's going to be little mini episodes appearing whilst I'm off the main show, just due to real life stuff. So, with all that being said, I will let you enjoy what was Saving for Skaven episode 5 and is now the Fluffenhammer episode something or other, and yeah, enjoy some fine financial fellow. Bye bye. Hello, good morning, good evening, good night, dear listener. Once again, welcome to Saving for Skaven, the mini-cast version of the Fluffenhammer. Usually, of course, this episode is all about the various things that are coming up for AOS 4.0, but we're going to cast we're going to cast the net a bit wider this afternoon, morning, evening, good night, and we're going to talk a little bit in depth about some drier things. Speaking of drier things, I am not alone this evening, for with me is the man who has been kidnapped multiple times. It's Big Swing D.
Hello.
Hello, sir. And of course, we have with us our favourite fine, feral financial fellow, Mr. AD8M, a man that I once spent many hours giggling over a jazz mag with.
I'm all about the wed.
I like that. That's where you went for, not the deep cut that was the jazz mag.
Hey, look, I still have you whispering, counting with Macho Man Randy Savage on my Facebook. And no, you're not allowed to diverse onto that topic.
I will do my very best to stay away from the Macho Man learning to spell numbers with Macho Man Randy Savage. Still one of my finest moments up there.
It's all right. I'll put a pin in that for later.
we can recreate it, but it's for a price.
And as the $1 Million Man said, everyone's got a price. Everyone's gonna pay. And a Macho Man Randy Savage said, I'll pay you $11, and you spell 11 with the first letter of my true love's name, the lovely Miss Elizabeth. Then you go to an L, then you go to another E for the lovely Miss Elizabeth, and then you move over and suplex it into a V, and then you get another E. There's 3 Elizabeths in one number. E. Then you get an N. A bad letter. And that's a basic idea of what Mr. White here had to deal with for nearly 2 hours.
Indeed. 2 hours? You mean 15 years, right?
God, it will be 15 years ago, wouldn't it?
It's coming up to it, yeah.
Yeah. Jeez Louise.
That explains so much.
Of course, the Jazz Mag comes from a wonderful little Marvel UK Transformers comic that me and Mr. White once reviewed, and
Yes.
I told you it was a deep cut.
Which one?
Nice.
Which one?
It was Man of Iron.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, classic.
And yeah, we covered a fair few of the old stories, but of course it's the perspective. It's stuff back then, and this will tie into what we say later on the show. Stuff that was done then might have seemed odd or weird or confused people or seemed out of touch or even seemed like a bold step. But back then, because the franchise was still so new and it was still such a new comic and experience to us all, you could put a Transformer comic out with all sorts of weird stuff and nobody would complain because nobody was established enough to have an idea of what they thought the overall concept must be.
This is true.
If you did it now, in fact, when they re-released Man of Iron later, I think in the States, there was a lot more feedback. People going, "What the hell is this? This looks really weird. This is all odd." Well, it kind of was, but you got away with it at the time.
Yeah.
And it made robots seem kind of scary and tied into the very real fear that kids were apparently trying to get into strange cars because they'd seen them as Transformers and thought they would be safe.
Yep. Although there is one toy tie-in that probably did more to make robots scary than anything else.
Which one?
Zoids.
Oh God, yeah. Marvel UK Zoids.
Yeah.
Otherwise known as possibly one of the finest moments of British comics. That thing goes places.
Yes, it does.
That goes into full Cronenberg body horror. You know,
Uh-huh.
it is a masterpiece. Absolutely brilliant.
Well, and the thing, I didn't realise it was a UK exclusive.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that until I was trying to find some pictures because someone in one of the Gundam groups posted about Zoids, the modern Zoids.
Mm-hmm.
And does anyone collect Zoids? And I went, cracks knuckles. Hold on, lad. Let me traumatise the group. Just to get a screenshot of... I was trying to find Silverman, but I got his Black Zoid instead.
Aye.
And I just posted that and said, yeah, this was my Zoids.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy.
It's one of the weird things that because Zoids has become so ingrained with the Japanese release of Zoids, you know, for better or for worse, it means that weird other worldliness has kind of gone from it. You know, it's now the Zoids are in the far-flung future, and they're just machines, for want of a better term. But Marvel UK ran them as in they were sentient in a way, and they were just terrifying.
Well, they leaned into the idea of the pilots being the personality, literally, of the Zoid, and there being different. It's a hell of a mythos to that series, and if you didn't know in advance, in retrospect, you can tell it's Grant Morrison.
Oh God, yeah.
It's Grant Morrison doing his take on Alien.
Mm-hmm.
But it ties into this. There was a theme as well with a couple of series, especially like kid shows that had a darker element. So Inhumanoids was another one that was really quite nasty when you thought about it.
Yeah.
And they showed, and that I think that had a run in the old Marvel.
Yeah, I remember the cliffhanger that strip left on.
Yes,
and it was just like Jesus.
And then you also, as well, when they went to reprint some Marvel stuff, they didn't just print any Marvel stuff. They printed a rather trippy Rocket Raccoon adventure. But they also had the Machine Man versus Iron Man 2020.
Yeah.
Which is really, like, nowadays, again, if you put that out now and go, here's your Iron Man, how'd you like that? They'd be furious because it's like a complete bastardization of what Tony Stark is.
Yeah,
and you'd be like,
Arlo Stark's a fascinating inversion of Tony.
And it was really, really well. I mean, because it wasn't it Barry Windsor Smith as well.
Yeah, he did. He did at least the art. I don't know if he did the writing as well. But I remember both those strips. Machine Man and Rocket Raccoon were. I adored both those stories as
you were sat there happily eating your Cadbury's Wildlife Bar. By the way, good thing that we didn't get distracted from our topic on this.
I know, right?
It's all right. I'm going to throw one thing into the mix just to really baffle everyone's brains. But guess what I've discovered this week?
Go on.
If you have a Tesco's Club card, Freddy Frogs, they're 10 pence again.
Hey.
So, no, my life is complete. I am happy again. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. As much as I could have very easily talked about Marvel UK's output and how it was edited by half of the Pet Shop Boys. That's a true fact. Yep, completely true. One of the most bizarre things in the world. Or, that Simon Furman used to live about 20 minutes away from where I am right now, which is even weirder. I don't think we're going to talk about that. Instead, we're going to open up this big dusty drawer and have a talk about the state of Games Workshop's financials in a roundabout way.
Yeah,
I'm going to pass this over to Mr. White.
Thank you. It's not. So this is for folks out there as well. This is not. Look, this is not the state of play at the moment. This is a kind of update on something that I did a while ago, which is sort of how we got to where we are now. But I wanted to tie in as well some of the elements that have happened recently, and I want to clarify a few things as well. But because so much has changed in the last couple of weeks, I'm not working off a script here. I'm literally working off random notes that have gotten increasingly chaotic as I've gone forward. So in doing this, the first thing is why? Why the hell would I do this? Well, the fact is that recently when we had drama, as everybody knows, a couple of us would go to the Fluffenhammer to air views and opinions. And the lovely thing about the Fluffenhammer was that it didn't matter your state of mind or your view towards this. The conversation was constructive. People put forward valid opinions. There was nothing where anyone overreacted. People tried. You could see people as well looking to take on the ideas or the points of other people. It was really heartening. And so with that in mind, I thought, well, there's been that going on, but there's also this other thing that's now going on, which is why is this being done? And you'll hear Blackrock and Vanguard, and you're hearing share ownership. You're hearing this sort of stuff come up, and like even this week, there's been something that's kicked off that really annoys the fudge out of me. But it's the case of, well, this is not information that is widely available to people. And when you go to get your information, it's often twisted and distorted before you get it. And the thing that infuriates me is that people think, oh, finance, oh, that's dry, oh, and that doesn't affect me. And also the big thing is, oh, I'm not smart enough to get that. It's like, you are absolutely smart enough to get that. In fact, anyone who reads the Fluffenhammer, you know about the fear of missing out. You know about pre-orders. You know about perception of product and line and popularity. You have seen everything. You probably know a lot about crypto and the good and the bad of crypto and MTFs and all of this sort of stuff because of your experience in media. So you absolutely know this. So all I was going to do is just put a little bit of stuff into context. And plus, as Games Workshop is going to be 50 years old next year, I believe.
Yes.
It's like so many of the things that are happening now have happened before. This is a real Battlestar Galactica thing. The cycle keeps completing.
Yeah. Time is a flat circle that keeps on spinning. Yeah.
So let's go into this. So to start off, this is going to hopefully tie in to other videos. And I know that's very pompous of me to say that because these are two wonderful videos by two individual creators. But there's a reason for this. The first one is by Arbiter Ian. Now, if you don't know Arbiter Ian, he is what I would like to think of the very best type of old school fan.
Yeah.
He's got a good deep knowledge. He knows a lot about the company, but it's from that grounded. He respects the history, but he's also open to change, and he doesn't buy into any of the faff, especially the reaction baiting. Yeah. And he did a lovely video recently on why Primaris Marines got so much hate. He even gives it he gives it a lovely little as well reaction style thumbnail that almost seems the perfect example of the hate videos that are going on at the moment. It's not. It's not only is it him talking about that event, but it very quickly expands into why people present that way and why you might feel persecuted when someone like Games Workshop changes one. And the way that he does it is with kindness and honesty and openness, but he delves in. It's almost like philosophy tube. He goes into it in such a deft manner that by the end of it, it will help you, dear listener, if you watch something again or you see something and you see somebody trying to trigger you into really hating something, it will help you to put that back in focus and go, yeah, I don't like that. I'll move on.
Yeah.
Sorry, Adam, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that video, it's as much philosophy as it is parapsychology. Yeah, yes. It is sociology 101. It is an absolutely brilliant piece of work that ties into a lot of what I've got degrees in. So it's I was watching it going, well, the maths checks out. It's it's very much my wheelhouse of thinking, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful. And one of these days, I need to sit down with that man. I really do.
Yeah, I think he'd be a lovely person to speak to.
Yeah, he and Mira on when they do their book review together, they seem like a lovely pair of folks to have a matter with.
Mira's just great. She's just absolutely brilliant.
Again, they bring a warmth, welcoming sort of air. It's weird. Trusted is, I know it sounds a bit pompous, but it's somebody that you can add to your subscription list, and you know that when you get content, it's going to be as it is, and there's going to be nothing that tries to influence the way you feel in order to benefit them, which is the most important thing, I think.
Yeah.
And following on from that, actually, is somebody about as different from that world as you can get, and that is a guy called the Plain Bagel. Now, Plain Bagel is a financial YouTuber, and financial YouTubers are every bit as bad as the sort of hate scammy Games Workshop stuff. In fact, you know this because if you ever type in crypto, you'll get 50,000 TikToks going, buy this now, buy this now, buy this now. There's is a huge industry built around constantly doing that. There's also as well like 5,000 now UK based YouTubers who constantly tell you how you should invest in your ISA and you should do this and you should do that. And then at the end of it, they then try and sell you a course. It's terrible. Plain Bagel doesn't do that. He's independent. He actually keeps a very balanced view, and when he talks about something, he does it in a way to explain to his audience why people might see it that way, but what are the truth. And I'm going to give you guys a link to put on the video to this, but he did something recently about why is it that people believe that Vanguard and Blackrock own the earth. Why do they have a major shareholding in so many companies? Now, if you watch that, it's great because it puts a lot of finance into perspective. And it puts a lot of people making assumptions and assuming this and that. And you'll hear about ESG, which is being talked about at the moment, and all sorts of, fun and games. He's a great guy, and he is like the financial version of Arbiter Ian, but obviously with less pistols. But right, so here's the dry bit. And this is the bit I'm going to try and zip through nice and quickly.
Okay.
So let's talk about Games Workshop as it starts. So it started 1975, 3 people, and it started as a private company. Now, when you say to somebody, hey, I work for a private company, sounds very fancy, but all that means is that the company did all the legal stuff it needed to set up, and it was owned by a small group of people. And when you set up a company, you want to figure out how you're going to reward those people. And one of the ways that private companies do that is by issuing what they call private shares. Think of it almost like a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding, where you, in thanks for your support and your involvement, you get some sort of private gift. It's not traded. You don't. If you get a private share, you don't trade it on the stock market. It just means you own a proportion of that.
Yeah.
And so three guys did this. They set it up, and again, this was all the basic stuff at the time, operating out of a bedroom. The classic Games Workshop story. Now, within a year of them starting the company, 2 of the guys wanted to do progressive games, which meant they wanted to move into computer games and media, because Games Workshop started off making wooden boards for traditional games, brass, backgammon, possibly chess. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there was chess.
But they wanted to do other stuff. They got the European license for D&D, which is the thing that really catapulted them from being, based in a bedroom to a high street shop. That and the fact that they were kicked out of their flats because of the success of their own company, because people thought that they had a shop already and didn't realize that they were just in a flat. The landlord wasn't too happy. But the whole deal with this is that within a year of them starting, you had somebody in the company that wanted the old one, and some people that wanted the new way.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is private shares, private ownership, etc. They settled privately, as you do, no big shakes. 2 people moved on, 1 person left. Then you've had all of the things after that. So you had the company grow rapidly, you had shops open, all of this stuff. You had, what was it, Rogue Trader in 87, you had Warhammer in 83, I believe. But the first big change of ownership was when 1991, Livingstone and Jackson left. The 2 founders left, and they actually sold the company to their own managers.
Yes.
Now, this can happen. It's like your big boss, or maybe the guy who founded a particular, like a corner shop, even. Like he might be the guy who was there at the start, but maybe he wants to move on. Maybe he wants to do something different. Hey, people are allowed to do that. Remember that. And also with companies getting so big, there's a point as well where, especially founders, they might not want to be involved in something so massive. They want to, dial it down. And
Mhm.
if your managers who run the company day to day go, hey, we think we could do this better, if they can give you a large amount of money for your shares, they can get ownership. That's exactly what happened. So a guy called Tom Kirby and a guy called Brian Ansell, who I believe sadly passed away earlier this year, they took on the company. They paid Jackson and Livingstone 10 million for their shares. Again, those private shares, so nobody else could buy them. By the way, if you wanted to buy the company back then, you'd literally jump in the time machine, jump back, and you'd have to go to them directly and go, "Can I buy your shares off you?" It's not like you can go and just buy them from a bank or anything. Literally, private meant private. However, this purchase, which is also known as a management buyout, but it was assisted by a private equity fund. Now, sometimes you hear about that and you get like lots of groaning and moaning about them. Private equity managers, ah, they're kind of cowboys. Um, you they take a lot of money from a lot of people, and the whole deal with them is that they go, right, Gruff, I'm going to take your 10 quid. I'm going to invest that in 3 companies that I think are going to do good. And you know
Awfully
what?
bold of you to think I have 10 quid.
I might I might push the companies a little to do some stuff that makes them more profitable. And if I get it wrong, then you'll certainly hear about me in the news. Hello Blockbuster, hello Toys R Us. But
Mhm.
if we get it right, then we can do wonders. And that's what this company called ECI did. They helped pay that 10 million, and within a couple of years, I think it was 94, I want to say. I have 300 pages of notes. There we go. At the beginning of 94, those guys actually pulled out, they sold out, and Games Workshop moved towards becoming a public limited company. They moved from private to public.
Yeah, I remember when that
Now,
happened. Yeah.
now the thing is that people go, "Oh, why have they gone public?" Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, the old guard won out, and they want to get paid. And also, as well, there's loads of benefits to being a publicly traded company. Yes, you get loads of money in that can pay people off so they can change the management, but also it means you can invest in new stuff. You get a huge amount of money that you in stores, invest in people. Also, people can invest in you. Plus, when an IPO, so when anything goes to the market, you get a lot of publicity. It can be very, very good. Now, there are some downsides to that as well. I say downsides because they are commitments that that company now needs to do. It's a benefit for you as a fan, though, and it's something that, especially at the moment, is being, I think, ignored or misread or taken for granted. So when you become a public company, well, you can't just hide away and say, "Oh yeah, we're doing good." No, you're public.
Yeah.
Anyone at the moment, anyone with 2 quid can buy a fractional share of Games Workshop. At this point, by the way, I should say I own shares in Games Workshop. I am absolutely not recommending that you buy any form of share because it is basically gambling. And please, if you have any, after this, if you go, "Oh, I'm tempted," please speak to an expert. Do not take this as, like me advocating ownership of the company. Please don't. But anyway, back to this. Because any person in the public can now buy a share of Games Workshop, Games Workshop is now obliged to put out regular reports, so a half year and a full year financial, where they break down everything. what's coming in, what's going out, what they're
Mhm.
getting on sales, what they're paying on rent, what they pay their board of directors.
Yeah.
The directors' salaries are on the GW site. Okay, there's no mystery. They talk about where they're buying new lots in Nottingham and how development of various workshops are going. They're talking about stuff around the world that you've never heard of. They're
Mhm.
talking about ESG that they started in 2021, 2020, so during lockdown. So this thing that's coming up at the moment, no, they've been doing that for a good couple of years now.
Yeah.
And they talk about all of this sort of stuff. They even mention stuff that can be perceived as negative against them. Good example being a couple of years ago, in their statement regarding Brexit, they said, and this was in 2021,
Yep.
they were honest. And this was, I think Gruff and I talked a bit about this at the time.
We did. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
guy in charge of Games Workshop, who is like has grown up through Games Workshop, not grown up, but he has developed his career through Games Workshop. A lot of the directors and people in charge there are very long-standing people.
Yeah.
And but he is the guy I think who was the first to really get GW push it forward. But he said, look, we've had some problems with Brexit because it's causing chaos at customs. And we're going to have issues with Brexit. Oh, and by the way, the French authorities owe us, what was it, 15 million in backdated customs fees.
Yes.
And we're kind of waiting for them to pull their finger out their ass. We
What-
will get it. We will get it probably in about 6 months. But at the
Mhm.
moment, we haven't got it. But that is standard for the industry.
What
Do you know what?
Roundtree
Do you
did?
remember what happened with that?
It just got sorted, didn't it?
The
For-
share
Yeah,
price
I think so.
crashed by about
Oh yes.
30%. You had people going, "Oh, it's
Oh, yeah, I
carnage,
remember
it's
that.
chaos." It is just nuts. It's very much similar to lockdown. If you want fun and games, by the way, folks, just go and look at Games Workshop share price on Google. It will come up straight away with a little graph. Just expand it to 5 years. You can see like little key on the bottom. It'll say 5 years, and just look what happened when lockdown hit, and then what happened afterwards.
Mhm.
Okay, the people buying and selling these shares are mostly adults, and I say that in terms of mentally. But they are absolutely subject to the same types of panic and fear of missing out and fluctuations in confidence that pretty much any other aspect like of the fandom is.
Yeah.
Okay, they are not, obviously a lot of it is moving now to automated systems and AI, but you still have a lot of people panic like hell. So yeah, he said this statement and people freaked out for no reason at all, by the way, because he'd said, look, it's a problem, but we're aware of it. I'm being honest with you. And then people freaked out. This is why, by the way, GW is one of the quietest companies. It puts out the minimum of stuff. It puts out everything that it's meant to put out. It's put out its regular reports. Also, as well, if any member of the board of directors, yes, we are absolutely going to talk about this in a sec. But if any of the board of directors buys or sells shares, not only are they heavily regulated in when they can do this, and I speak as somebody who works in a job who's heavily regulated in exactly the same way. Well, in a lesser degree, but same sort of structure.
Mhm.
When they buy or sell, they have to announce it. Likewise, if any company is interested in Games Workshop, sure, they can buy into it. Like you can buy £2 will get you a tiny fraction of a Games Workshop share. Congratulations, you're a shareholder. But if you want to get over, and in the UK it's 3%, if you've got 2.999999% of Games Workshop, well, that's fine. That's no problem. But if you break over into 3%, well, for a start, Games Workshop have to announce it.
Yeah.
Then, if you go up or down a percentage, it's announced. So
Yeah.
if you go from 3 to 4, announced. 4 to 4.9, not announced. 4.9 to 5.1, announced.
Yeah. Yeah.
5.1 to 5.00001, not announced, but 5.1 to 4.9, announced.
Yeah.
It has to be like clarification. Everybody needs to know who are the main shareholders of Games Workshop. And by the way, when people invest in Games Workshop is not a huge company still. It is part of the FTSE 250. Now that means that it is part of the 250 biggest companies in the UK. Now that sounds pretty grand, but people are more familiar with a thing called the FTSE 100.
Yes.
That's the top 100. Okay.
Yeah.
So the FTSE 250 is literally number 101 to 250. That's how it works. Think of it as divisions in football.
I'd rather not.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, now that Games Workshop is alive, this public company, and it's providing all this information. I think I bought Games Workshop when it was on AIM, I believe. So basically like a lower division, something that you don't pay so much attention to.
Yeah.
But when you move up into those bigger divisions, it becomes really useful for like companies to invest in you. And when I say invest, I mean, how many of you, and most people at home will know this. You get a lot of people, like banks will sell you funds and they'll say, why don't you invest in this or that or that or that, or whatever. The FTSE 100 fund. Most of you have heard of this. Okay. All you're doing is say you put, again, Gruff, I'll give you a tenner so you can invest it. It's fine. But if you put a tenner into the FTSE 100, it doesn't mean that you're putting 10p into 100 different companies. It means that the bank takes the value of the FTSE 100 and then you invest into a fund, and your money changes in proportion to the amount that the FTSE changes.
Yeah, in the same way that pensions move around in pension companies,
That's it.
it moves in and out of other companies depending on where things are to try and get the maximum amount of
And this is a
recourse.
huge thing.
Yeah.
This is a huge thing because pension companies are one of the biggest investors in these types of funds.
Yeah.
And we're going to call them index funds to keep it simple. So the FTSE 250 is an index fund. The FTSE 100 index, Dow Jones, that's American. Hang Seng, you'll hear loads of them. They'll just be spurted out. They are the top 50, S&P 500. There we go. So you hear these terms, you think, oh, these sound technical. No, it's not. It's the top 500. I think it's tech companies in America. It's the Dow Jones. It's the top 50 companies in Singapore, the top 100 companies in Australia. Every country does it. You all have indexes. Now, it means that, and by the way, I've gone completely off a tangent, but I'm coming back to it. Say somebody owns, say you've got your 10 quid in the FTSE 250, okay? So technically, you're a part owner in Games Workshop.
Yeah.
Now people don't realize this. They forget. It's like, well, you are invested in a fund that's invested in the FTSE. So technically you are an owner. You're not, but you are. It's a kind of gray area. So BlackRock and Vanguard have huge funds. They are some of the largest financial institutions. And the way I say that they're large is that people give their money to Vanguard and Vanguard invest for them.
Yeah.
So Vanguard itself is not hugely valuable. Vanguard is worth, and I say only, but it's about 300 million, 400 million. But
Okay.
the amount of funds that it controls are about 10 trillion.
Well, you compare that to, say, one of the higher New York solicitors, lawyers, and that's like a drop in the bucket compared to what the companies that do New York lawyers makes, or is worth, I should say. Yeah, it's a huge difference.
So,
but 300 million compared to 4 billion,
If you've got that much money chucked into a FTSE 250, that means that when you work it out and you work out the fractions and you work out what is what and who has what, and remember as well, someone on the size of BlackRock, they're going to own a lot of that stuff directly. But it means that on behalf of its customers, BlackRock owns a chunk of Games Workshop because, again, Games Workshop is a 250 company.
Yeah.
So that's why you've reached this position where you've got the likes of Vanguard, BlackRock, as part of those, as a major investor. And people go, oh yeah, but there must be a massive investor. Well, not massive. I mean, Bailey Gifford, I think, has just over 10%. And again, you won't even know who Bailey Gifford is. I wouldn't expect you to. Again, a lot of the owners of these companies are financial institutions that look after money on behalf of their client. So you don't automatically know them. Further down the list, you do have JP Morgan, which I think more people are familiar with. But the likes of Blackrock and Vanguard, people don't know. So it's easier for people to misinterpret what they do and how they work. But BlackRock at the moment owns 6.56%. No, actually, slightly different. Yes. So it is 6.56% of Games Workshop as of February this year. You will hear people talking about a slightly different amount. That's because they looked at last year's sales report. Again, they're not looking at up-to-date figures. This is the fastest I could find. That, by the way, that amount of they own, was it 2,162,045 shares, which means in terms of value, they hold 205 million pounds worth of shares in Games Workshop. Can I please repeat that their value in total, that what they own on behalf of their customers is over 10 trillion.
Yeah.
And we're talking about 205 million.
Even when you compare that against Games Workshop's actual worth and the money that they bring in each year, that's not a massive percentage. It's large, but it's not massive.
It's not. Now,
also, I do have to ask, why the hell does somebody who owns that much shares in Games Workshop sound like a Warcraft expansion pack? Blackrock and Vanguard.
Oh, American companies. Also, as well, like if you look at even the simple, let's say JP Morgan, there will be 20, 30 people that have had a major influence on that company over the years, and that often names change, things go together. So the reason that BlackRock is called BlackRock could be for a whole bunch of reasons. I have to admit that's one of the things I didn't research.
Because it's owned by orcs.
Exactly. But anyway, so why do people invest in a company? Well, I mean, the main thing is, of course, is you hope to invest because it's safe, and this is a big thing as well with Footsie 100. If someone goes from the 250 to the 100, it's meant to imply an extra degree of safety, which means a lot of pension companies buy into it. And because they buy into it, the share price goes up. So it stays in the Footsie 100. It's almost like the Premier League, where if you're in the Premier League, a lot of fans are going to go to your games. So therefore, you're going to make more money. So you can buy more players. So you will continue to be in that league. And when you collapse and fall out of it, sometimes you can recover quickly, but sometimes you just, good example is like, for instance, Marks and Spencer. They came out of the 100 into the 250. Their share price tanked for a bit. The management rebuilt. They went back up into the Footsie 100, and everybody loves them. Again, the people that panicked when they dropped now bought back in when they went up.
Yeah.
And you see this all the time. So what do you get apart from some safety? Well, you also hope to make money. Now, Games Workshop have all these investors, and they want to keep them happy because they don't want everyone to sell. Because if everyone sells, then the price drops, and suddenly it's not like they're worth nothing. Again, their annual report tells you that there's a lot of money coming in. They are making profit. But what they do then is that they give a little reward to their shareholders. Again, this is something that I love seeing misinterpreted, but this is the famous dividend that you hear about.
Yes.
So for a shared dividend, say you own a share at the moment, I think they're about 94 quid. If you own a dividend, there's various date concerns, etc. But let's say you just hold it for a year. You're probably going to get about 350 to 4 quid back.
Yeah.
And that's going to be at 4 times throughout the year, and it's going to be it's the company's way of saying. Now, sometimes they can even give you an exceptional dividend. That means if they ever have something like, for instance, a customs fee that came back from France for about 20 million that they told everyone about, when they got that back, they gave that back to shareholders. It's great. It's a nice little
Yeah.
way of them saying thank you. And remember, because they're not paying like a massive amount, they're paying a tiny amount. But
Mm.
it is that small extra thing. Some groups will invest to get dividends. Some and this mythical thing they call passive income. But this but again, there are problems with that. You pay tax on dividends. There are concerns. So you will have some shareholders who buy in after a dividend and then sell before the next one because they don't want to get money. There's all sorts of consideration.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, if you own like even a fractional share, you are a shareholder, which means you get to vote in issues and events that affect the company. And if you look at for instance, the investor relations page on Games Workshop, super useful. So much information there. You've got the half-year reports. You've got people buying in and selling. You've got every movement that a director makes, either buying or selling. Again, we'll come to that in a sec. And then you also have the voting structure as well. And it gives you both the questions and the voting results of what they ask shareholders to vote on each year. Most of the time you do it via proxy, so you'll get a little mail through and it goes, right, here's the questions. Are you cool with this? You send it back and it's counted on your behalf and boom, it goes forward. You can go to the physical event, but famously shareholder events, because you get a lot of activists and you get all sorts of random stuff going on, they tend to hold shareholder events, even for the biggest companies, in the most remote location that you can only find by rolling a D20 and hoping that the wind is coming from the east. But you have a say and you can see the questions and you can see what is voted on.
Yeah.
And this is what, again, another thing people are misreading at the moment. What changes, what things can you vote on? What are well, it's simple. You vote on the pay of the directors, which again, it amazes me people don't know this. Like you as a shareholder can choose whether you think that the director should be paid what he is or if it's too much. You can also vote on the fact of which board members are there. Are you happy with the leader? Are you happy with the financials? And you can raise other concerns. In fact, they have on Games Workshop's investor page, they have investor relations team. And you can go to them if you are an investor and you can raise a query. Now, yes, if you've got just your £2 in there, let's face it, there could be a lot of people that go to them with all sorts of random questions. And yes, it helps. If you have 1,000 shares of someone who has one, then they might take the person with 1,000 shares a little bit more seriously. But that's more because the person has more of an investment in the company.
Yeah.
Especially if it's I don't know if long-term counts into it, but I'd imagine yes, because it means that you're tending to ask questions more about the business than anything else. Now, when I said that back in, what was it, 91, when Jackson and Livingston sold their shares as a private company well, they actually, at the time, they decided, both Brian Ansell and Tom Kirby, along with this management company, they decided to make a couple of changes to Games Workshop. They focused on internal product and they decided to concentrate on their core products, but also make it a bit more accessible, a bit more family friendly, a bit more, dare I say, diverse. And funnily enough, just like in 1976, a lot of fans didn't like it. It was considered a change from the old GW that they liked. And back then, a couple of company employees who didn't like the way it was going, they didn't just like complain. They literally walked away and created their own company.
I wonder what company that is that I've
It
been
was only
to.
it was only a couple of years because it didn't survive for too long.
No,
But
it's the beginnings of War Foundry.
yeah, but it's the whole thing of every time that there is a move to be more expansive, more aggressive, as although it was a private company at the time, so you didn't have that ability to feed back. The fact is that nowadays, when you have massive changes, if people don't like it, they can sell their shares. They can that will damage the company. that will lower the stock price. They probably won't get a return on what they've invested in.
Yeah.
But nowadays there are ways of feeding back more information. And we've seen this like a few times. We've seen again there was the Brexit comments. There have been all sorts of random things. But because of this extra sorry, I should add at this point as well. Technically, my current employer, I think I can say this, a company called Ruffer, 10 years ago, they were the largest shareholder in Games Workshop. And if you look at past reports, and this would be full year reports, you'll see that the largest owner in Games Workshop does change. People will jump in for a couple of years and then move out. But what they don't do is they don't go in with the idea of torpedoing everything.
No.
Likewise as well, if, say, I am invested in Games Workshop, overall, you look at the vast expanse of Games Workshop, you look at everything that Games Workshop has going on for it at the moment, you would need to change a substantial amount to impact the entire business. You could take something core, you could take a critical system, and there is something running behind the scenes which still is probably the biggest challenge that Games Workshop will ever face, which is an update of their entire core process system, which at least one person listening to this will know exactly what I mean. Everyone else will be lost. Don't worry, it's okay. But it takes an awful lot. So think about stuff in the news at the moment and think about drama. Now think about how big that is. And I'm not even talking about like how you view people that react negatively to this, but just think about how big that is in the vast scheme of the business.
Yeah.
Okay. How big that is in the vast scheme of the paint business or the resin business or the mail order or White Dwarf. How big is it to them? It's very, very small. Very, very, very small. So companies invested in GW, although they might push forward their own ideas of ethics and ESG. ESG, by the way, started out as an environmental thing.
Oh.
ESG is actually an environmental not brand, but it's like a scheme. ESG, I think, literally is environmental scheme something. It's basically to be less damaging to the environment and to build on more environmentally friendly values, which is why certain products have changed at GW because they want to make it more environment friendly. They started, by the way, on this, 2020 to 2021. So ESG has been running at GW for quite a long time. And loads of companies have this. The problem is, and Plain Bagel goes into this, is that the guy in charge of Blackrock, who wanted, let's face it, so many of these heads of companies are always playing up what good they do in the world. Let's look at Richard Branson, a good example. Constantly saying that they do this, that, and the other. I know. But this is not going to be a rant about individuals. But when you will have someone who most people who don't read between the lines will think a wonderful person.
Yeah.
And then maybe somebody who works for, I don't know, or has had experience with train company or with the way that businesses are actually run. You go, well, actually, the figurehead might be a lovely guy, but the company is a nasty piece of work.
Yeah.
And you have that same thing with all sorts of companies. And Blackrock is a good example of this. And they've been talking about how they want to push people to be more diverse. They want to push them to do this. They want to push them to do that. Very much a Hollywood thing. We are going to promote ourselves as being this so that we can get some sort of reward from the people that like this. Forgetting that every single one of us, regardless of our situation or our attitude towards diversity, knows that fake diversity is the most insulting thing. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that the company that owns 10 trillion of funds is going to go after GW and ask them to change one small thing in one small area, because it doesn't make sense to anyone. because an accountant or a bank manager is not going to go change one small part of the law. They're going to say change this part of the business.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing. They might want them to be more environmental. They might want them to reduce their carbon footprint. They might want them to use a different distribution method that saves on money. But they're never going to go, oh, I think you should change part of the law, because that makes no financial sense. You cannot quantify a plus minus based on a law change.
No.
So, and that's really, really important. The people are misreading at the moment. Sorry, go for it.
The best way I think of putting that is, if Tencent can't do it, then BlackRock and Vanguard can't do it. And Tencent have tried very, very hard over the last 10 years. And if you don't know who Tencent is, they are the Chinese company who have their fingers in everything, from film right the way down to games, record companies, food. Tencent are massive. And if they can't get more Chinese positive stuff into Hollywood films, considering how much they own of a lot of Hollywood companies now, then BlackRock and Vanguard are not going to do anything to a tiny company that is Games Workshop.
Yeah, and I mean, as a good comparison as well, I'm a Warframe player. Yes, my apologies to everyone. And the company,
Tencent's got their hand in that as well.
yeah, they own it. They own it.
Yeah.
It's been going for 11 years. I think Tencent took ownership of it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They have tried, bless them, they have tried to monetize a game which was sort of known for being the best free-to-play game that isn't heavily monetized.
Yeah.
They tried it twice. The fans, and I hope you don't mind, they basically told them to fudge off. And then they backed
you
the hell
can swear.
off.
It's okay. You can swear.
I know, but it's no, because trust me, I would have spent half the last half an hour swearing. But the whole deal was they weren't able to do it. And a lot of the time as well, the companies, when you get someone smart in charge, they'll make little changes, they'll make little adjustments, they'll make little things. They'll know that there'll be a bit of a blow up, but they'll actually keep the core business running smoothly. They will never completely kibosh something in order to make it better. The only time that you see something like that is possibly like Disney at the moment, where a company has fallen so far, both due to perceived failings and genuine financial failings, that there is a genuine struggle for power. If that ever happened at GW, you would certainly know about it. It would be massive news. So anyway, because I know I've gone all over the place, I've missed out half my notes. I've embellished the other half, but I just want to quickly talk about Rachel. Now, Rachel is a CFO. Rachel has been at the company for 27 years. She was appointed to the group finance officer role, and I'm checking this, but as of December 2014, when she was appointed to that role, she then had to list her shareholdings.
Yes.
And at that time, her and her husband owned 8,000 shares.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not want to know what the price roughly, and because I don't know when she bought them, but I'm just going to take the December 2014 as the date. Both of you, guess how much do you think the shares were worth back then?
Pre-AOS, so I'm going to guess 500 to 700 quid.
Okay. What for the 8,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to guess 50k.
50. Right. Let's just check. I have to admit, what about the share price? That would be easier to guess.
I don't know. Just I'm thinking pre-AOS, Fancy Battle's dying. There is a lot of negativity towards Games Workshop in the general online community due to the fact they don't have any online footprint. It's not going to be high.
No, I'm going to say less than 50 quid. Maybe 20, 25.
Okay.
I was thinking even less than that. I was thinking like, about £10.
£5.
Okay.
Really?
£5.
Wow.
Now, when somebody, I mentioned before as well that there are rules. So when you work at a company, especially on the board, not only do you have to announce every time you purchase shares, but also, and most people will know this, a lot of companies have Sharesaves schemes, which means that you buy shares through the company, maybe taken out of your wages, maybe every month, maybe once or twice a year, and you often get a discounted rate. You get a bit of a thank you from the company for investing in their shares. And let's face it, more share ownership by employees makes the share a little bit more stable, adds to the value of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it also comes with a caveat in that, especially for share savers, you might get, like in my previous firms, let's just say, I think I've had a 10% discount. But because of that, I have to hold on to the shares for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
If I sell 5 years, then I will have to pay tax on those, and the tax will obviously reduce the longer I hold the shares.
Yeah.
The amount I pay into the share save is much like your pension. You pay into it before tax is applied.
Yeah.
So that's how they get you into these share save schemes. They're not a con, they're perfectly legal. All companies do it. However, if you are a senior manager, then you have extra conditions because you know sensitive information, which means you cannot, I think, two of the basics are 30 days before results and 30 days after results, you cannot do shit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Cannot. And if you do anything, you're done. I'm sorry, you're gone.
Yeah.
Because the government will come down on you like a ton of bricks. And they will. When they find any form of wrongdoing at senior companies, especially on the finance side, they throw the book at them because it's not the government, it's actually a financial watchdog, and they are they've come through 2008 credit crunch like a pit bull. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of restrictions. So you'll see that if you go back through, again, Games Workshop, publish all this stuff, you'll see that around certain times of the year, there will be a flurry of activity, not just because the directors can buy and sell at that time, but also because, well, there's a tax year. And people like to do stuff at the beginning of the tax year for that tax year if
Mm-hmm.
they know that they need to do it at this point. Now, Rachel has been at the company, say, 27 years. She announced in January that she was leaving.
Yes.
There was nothing negative about it. There has been nothing negative since. You're going to hear at the moment a lot of people talking about this whole thing that, oh, she's announced because of the change to custodies. No, again, no. Again, without think about this, people that are at home, please. Think about somebody who is a chief financial officer of a major company that is worth a couple of billion. Okay. Think about that role involves finance at an incredibly high level, incredibly in depth. You're dealing with board members and you're dealing with major financial institutions. You're dealing with so much high level stuff. Now, of all the things in that world, in that scenario, do you think a change to law will have an effect?
No.
A change to law, by the way, in one paragraph in one book.
Yeah. No. Silly.
It can't do. And it's not that we're pleading that nobody's done anything wrong. It's because it doesn't make sense in the real world. And she bought them, these shares, or okay, I've had to guesstimate here, but even if, and I know there was a rise in the shares before 2014, I'm sure people have already seen and pointed that out. But say even if it was 10 quid, if I said to you, right, you bought some shares 10 years ago for 10 quid, do you want to sell them for 90 because you are leaving the company?
Yeah.
Pardon me. You would want to do that. Now, Rachel as well has, in recent years, moved some of the shares that she earned to an ISA. And I know this suddenly sounds, oh, this is a bit familiar. How do you know that? Well, because even though it was only a couple of hundred shares, which actually doesn't equate to that much in the big scheme of things, she still had to announce it. It still had to be published. She's moved stuff into a tax efficient wrapper, which means the stuff when she leaves the company that is not in a tax efficient wrapper, well, she's leaving the company. It makes sense for her to divest herself of the shares in the company that she works for, because she's going to be gone next January.
Yeah.
And that's the thing as well. She's not out the door. She's still working there until next January.
Yeah.
This is what happens when people leave. The company that I work at the moment, they are a private company. There is, we're going to be careful here, there is a private share element to the company. And as you would expect, when you join the company, you're possibly in a position to then be part of them. And when you leave the company, well, those shares are then exchanged back for cash because you are leaving the company. There's no point in somebody keeping the shares. If you've left a company, you kind of want to move on.
Of
Yes,
course.
I get that
Yeah.
some people hold on to it as an investment, but also as well, 27 years, give her a break. So this whole thing at the moment, there's so much stuff that I just kind of want to go into and other stuff, but it really is. It's like, for a start, like most of the stuff I've gone over, you understand because you're fans of the franchise. The fear of missing out, the perception of stuff, etc. You see this all the time within the fandom. But this does take me on to the final thing, and this is more like a plea to you. So earlier on, I said about, like, please don't buy any based off this. And one of the things I want to go over very quickly is just how Games Workshop, especially when it rose to prominence during lockdown, how it became excellent clickbait.
Yes.
Now, there is a site called the Motley Fool. It's also known as Motley. It's also known as Fool or Daily. It is a finance website. Every day it posts the latest tips in finance. And one of the writers there, or two of the writers, are investors in Games Workshop. They put out, I swear to God, they put out a minimum 2 articles a week telling you why this one Footsie stock is a great idea for the future. How much would this stock have been worth if you'd bought it in 2014? If you'd bought this 5 years ago, you'd see this particular stock give you 500%. Every single thing it can do to market Games Workshop stock, it will do.
Wow.
It is not, and it's very, very similar to a lot of the YouTube. It's the YouTube mentality. YouTube hate, okay, is done to obviously manipulate, but it's also as well to generate funds for the people making the videos.
Of course. Yeah.
If you go to a site like Marvel that encourages that, oh, you should buy this Games Workshop share, blah, blah, blah. Well, they've got adverts on there, got links to stuff. I bet as well, I guarantee at points, they might even say, if you buy the stock at this rate, go here. And it's a link to, I don't know, Trading 2-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, there's all money being made. And the thing is, the person that writes this article, well, if a load of people do suddenly buy stock and it goes up, oh, great. It's a self-fulfilling cycle. Where the price goes up, they can report it as news. I mean that very loosely. And then they can just keep it going. And of course, if you're at home and you're like, oh, tight, and I wish I could make some quick, and you see this stock's gone up 500% in the last 2 years, you know, that's when you have problems. That's when you boom. Now, GW is too big for that, but you'll still find that a lot of people try and profit off it. So there we go. So anyway, that's the end of my rant. It started off quite concise. It basically became a sort of like free for all by the end.
It's fascinating, though, isn't it? There's so many overlays you can do between the idea of the financial world and the fandom world. Whilst there's not really a one-to-one, there is an overlay that you can very easily map from one to the other. of
Oh,
how
yes.
people react and respond, and how they look to the future, and a lot of the time, from what you're saying there, and from my own knowledge, a lot of the time it's a mix of sensible people holding the nerve to see what happens next, and trigger happy people jumping the gun, trying to work out which way the wind's blowing. Um,
Well, you
and
have as well by its very nature. I should say as well. There are people that invest in a years,
yeah,
and then there are day traders.
yeah,
And the day traders are, by the way, day traders, although they sit at a computer now, they're more likely to just be sat there, hunched over, quiet, not saying a word all day. But
hmm
go back 20 years, and they were the buy, sell, shout,
yeah,
shout, Wall Street. That's them. They get at the beginning of the day, they might have £1 million. They're going to buy stuff at the beginning of the day, sell it at the end of the day, hope it makes some money.
yeah,
That's the knee jerk. Unfortunately, when a stock starts to rise, they'll go, "Oh, that's going up. Let me buy into it." When it starts to fall, "Oh, it's going down. Let me hold off and see if I can buy at the end of the day or wait for a." Have you ever heard of dead cat bounce?
yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they
From
wait.
trading places of all things.
Yeah. Hey, just don't knock trading places. Trading places, although it's bastardized, it did. There's a whole generation of traders who got their first inkling of the industry through that film.
I
Like I don't know, like bacon that you would find in a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich, for instance. But no, there's you're always going to get opportunists. So you do have that element anyway. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes around, and YouTube is the same as that. So when somebody takes a recent development at GW and goes, "This is why the company is dead," well, no. The company was apparently dead in 76. It was dead in 91. It was dead when fantasy got rolled out. It was dead when they started doing kids books. It's been dead half a dozen times. Scandal. There's been a whole load of scandals. There's been far worse scandals about GW than this.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft wanted to team up. They ignored it. You had StarCraft debacle. You had the fact that right back at the beginning, the D&D guys wanted to merge with Games Workshop.
Yeah.
And Games Workshop said no. I mean, there's a whole host of things.
Do you know
But
why Games Workshop said no?
Was it because it sounded dodgy?
No, it's because they didn't want Gygax to realize there were just three guys in a. So basically, how they got hold of the D&D license for the UK was by lying through their teeth, and we are talking absolute bullshit, right?
Okay.
So Gygax thought that these guys were the representatives of a much larger company, and it wasn't until 4 or 5 years into their relationship that Gygax realized what he'd done. Because 1976, there isn't the ways of checking up on things as there is now, But Livingstone and Jackson managed to bullshit perfectly to Gygax.
Wow.
Oh, it's incredible.
So let's try and ignore the fact that they based the entire company off lies, because that would be really bad. But no, it's the thing where hopefully, I know this was dry, and I know that it doesn't really serve a point, but hopefully you can see that there has, and this is my way of saying, there is drama, but there's always been drama.
Yeah.
There are changes that might affect the way that you and others view a certain. But believe me, in the big scheme of things, they can't have that much effect. They can't, because the size of the company.
Yeah.
The press, well, actually look at the mainstream press. They really don't give a monkeys. The big thing will be is if they change the dividend. They put the dividend up or down. Oh my goodness, if they drop the dividend by 5p, ooh, that could be a problem. That would be all over everywhere. That would have an impact.
Yeah,
Or as we think here, the Brexit comment. Like nobody in the fandom knew a fudging thing about the Brexit comment.
No.
But it was all over Citywire. It was all over the Times. It was all over the stock markets. It had a huge impact on the business. And that's the thing as well. It's like these are separate worlds.
One of the fun things about the Brexit comment is that only 2 newspapers reported on it. One was The Guardian, so you can imagine how that went. The other was the Daily Mail, so you can imagine how that went.
Of course.
Yeah. And
Oh no, it did. Unfortunately, it did. It did feature in other papers,
mhm.
but the other papers wouldn't have, put it this way, it wouldn't have been in the same clickbaity style.
No,
So
no.
you would have had to have dug for it. So for instance,
Yeah.
it was part of Citywire, it was part of the Times, but
Yeah.
it wasn't the lead. It didn't begin with, "Oh my God, Brexit shock."
Mhm.
Subtitle: "Where have our UK sausages gone?" It's like
Yeah.
it doesn't work like that. It's different rules and
Of course,
stuff.
yeah. I mean more like the tabloids rather than the financial
Yeah.
papers, but yeah.
And yeah, don't, again, if anyone is telling you that the company has done this because of finances, just jump onto the fluff and say, look, I've read this. Because
Yeah.
I had to. I was stuck on something. It was actually when I was looking at Rachel and her previous ISA payments, and I thought they were bigger than they were. And I also got confused because 3 years ago, one of the other board members, I want to say Elaine, transferred stock from her to her son and her
Mm.
husband. Again, she had to report this,
Of
but
course.
at one point I thought, oh, is that Rachel? Because if so, then she would have divested herself of a lot of her funds already. So then I went through 4 years of director reports this morning to clarify that she hadn't, which is why my state of mind is not the best.
You poor man.
I can't really sum it up, but there is something that I would like to recommend. Oculus Imperia
Mhm.
on YouTube. He's a lovely. He is, I think, one of the best presenters of lore ever. He does a fantastic job.
Oculus is brilliant.
He does. He has his scripting, and again, lore is a delicate thing in that a lot of people rehash, like they literally just read out the wiki.
But he's not. He's actually taking
Yeah.
the lore, rewriting it as if he's a character in universe, presenting it, and it's so well put together, and the way he commits to the bit really sells it as well.
He is, if you think in terms of lore, there are two sides to it. There's factual, and there's fiction. So there's the real lore as just read out to you, and then there is an in-character person relaying that information. Lutin and him are the two sides of that equation. Lutin will give you the facts and read the stuff out, and he's really good at his stuff. He's beautiful at his stuff. That is his thing, but he's on one side of it, whereas Oculus is on the other, where it's about character. Again, he has genuinely, like, he's gone so far into the character and gotten upset about things as the character, and you genuinely feel affected. So I want to recommend.
I think he did a collab with 40k Theories a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Where Narina played her Inquisitor character.
Yes.
Basically vetting his work, and it was
beautiful,
brilliant. Yeah, just perfect. But for both.
He was barely holding his annoyance in check as well. But he's recently done a video on Black Shield.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
And I've posted the thing is, I don't want to say too much about it, but what I will say is that about halfway through, you'll realize that it is a clenched fist in a silk glove, and it is some of the loveliest writing. And especially in light of recent events, because it's absolutely addressing some recent events. Just watch it. Literally halfway that you won't even realize what he's doing until he does it. And again, it is beautifully put. It's beautifully stated. It is so well done. Fantastic. And yeah, he's somebody I would love one day to just find out a little bit about his process and how he gets himself into that world. And does he still have to scare off his cat every so often during?
I think you'll find it's called a feeling, Ed, and No.
In the old recordings, occasionally he would go psst, psst, tap 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 tap, and he's scaring the cat off from his microphone. Anyway, that's me done. Apologies if that was too drawn out.
No, that was
that was brilliant.
fascinating. Absolutely fascinating, man. Right, well, we will draw this to a close, and
Thank you.
oh man, honestly, I could have sat here for another hour and listened to you talk, which I won't make you do. Don't worry. We'll draw this to a close, and I hope you guys at home enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.